Hmm. Here we are concerned with the data from the field of economics. Most economics data are quantitative. For example, statement in economics like the production of rice in India has increased from 39.58 million ton in 1974-75 to 106.5 million ton in 2013-14 is a quantitative data. In addition to quantitative data, economics also uses qualitative data. The chief characteristic of such information is that they describe attributes of a single person or a group of persons that is important to record as accurately as possible, even though they cannot be measured in quantitative terms. Take, for example, gender that distinguish a person as man, woman, boy, girl. It is often possible and useful to state the information about attribute of a person in terms of degree like better, worse, sick, healthy, more healthy, skilled, unskilled, highly skilled, etc. Such qualitative information or statistic is often used in economics and other social science and collected and stored systematically like quantitative information on price, income, taxes paid, etc. whether for a single person or a group of person. You will study in the subsequent chapter that statistic involve collection of data. The next step is to present the statistic in data in tabular, diagrammatic, and graphic form. The data then are summarized by calculating various numerical indices such as mean, variance, standard deviation, etc. that represent the broad characteristic of the collected set of information. Finally, the data are analyzed and interpreted. What statistic does? Statistic is an uh, indispensable tool for an economy that help him to understand the economic problem. Using it various method, effort is made to find cause behind it with the help of qualitative and quantitative fact of economic problem. Once the cause of problem once the cause of problem are identified, is easier to formulate certain policy to tackle it. But there is more to statistics. It enables us economists to predict economic fact in a precise and definite form that help in proper comprehensive what is stated. When the economic fact are expressed in statistical terms, they become exact. Exact facts are more convincing than vague statement. For instance, saying with precise figure 310 people died in the recent earthquake in Kashmir is more factual and thus is statistical data, where saying 100 of people died in not. Statistic Statistic also help in understanding mass data into a few numerical measures such as mean, variance, etc., about which you will learn later. This numerical measure help to summarize data. For example, it would be impossible for you to remember the income of all people in a data if a number of people is very large. Yet one can remember easily a summary figure like average income that is obtained statistically. In this way, statistic summarizes and present a meaningful overall information about a mass of data. Quite often, statistic is used in finding relationship between different economic factors. An economist may be interested in finding out what happened to the demand for a commodity when its price increases or decreases, or would supply of a commodity be affected by the changes in its own price, or would consumption expenditure increases when the average income increases, or what happened to the general price level when the government expenditure when the government expenditure increases. Such question can only be answered if any relationship exists between the various economic factors that have been stated above. Whether such relationship exists or not can be easily verified by applying statistical method to the data. In some cases, the economist might assume certain relationship between them and like to test whether the assumption he or she made about relationship is valid or not. The economist can do this only by using the statistical technique. In other instances, economists might be interested in predicting the changes in economic factor due to the changes in another factor. For example, he or she might be interested in knowing the impact of today investment on national income in future. Such exercise cannot be undertaken without the knowledge of the statistic. Sometimes formulation of plan and policy require knowledge of future trend. For example, an economic planner has to decide in 2017 how much the economy should produce in 2020. In other words, one must know what could be expected level of consumption in 2020 in order to decide the production plan of the economy for 2020. In this situation, one might make subjective judgment based on the guess about the consumption in 2020. Alternative might use statistical tool to predict consumption in 2020. That could be based on the data of consumption of past year or of recent year obtained by the survey. The statistical method help formulate appropriate economic policy that solve economic problem. Conclusion: today we increasingly use statistics to analyze various to serious economic problems such as rising price, growing population, unemployment, poverty, etc. to find measures that can solve such problems. Further, it also helps to relate the impact of such policy in solving economic problem. For example, it can be ascertained easily using statistical technique whether the policy of family planning is effective in checking the problem of ever growing population. In economic policy, statistics play a vital role in decision making. For example, in the present time of rising global oil prices, it might be necessary to decide how much oil data should import in 2025. The decision to import would depend on expected domestic production of oil and the likely demand for oil in 2025. Without the use of statistics, it cannot be determined what the expected domestic production of oil and the likely demand for would be. Thus, the decision to import oil cannot be made unless we know the actual requirement of oil. This vital information that help to make decision to import oil can only be obtained statistically. Recap: our wants are unlimited, but the resources used in the production of goods that satisfy our wants are limited and scarce. Scarcity is the root of all economic problems. Resources have alternative use. Purchase of good by the consumer to satisfy their various need is consumption. Manufacture of goods by producer for the market. Manufacture of goods by the producer for the market is production. Division of national income. The division of national income into wages, profit, rent, and interest is distribution. Division of national income into wages, profit, rent, and interest is distribution. Statistics find economic relationship using data and verify them. Statistical tools are used in prediction of future trend. Statistical method help analyze economic problem and formulate policy to solve them. Statistical methods are no substitute for common sense. There is an interesting story which is to